Hi, I'm Monique and I'm a law student at Monash University. Welcome to this Lawcate interview. At Lawcate, our mission is to help law students locate opportunities in law. We hope to connect you with the experiences and resources to help you build employability skills at law school and better prepare you for the future of the legal industry. In this series, we're interviewing professionals, graduates, and law student leaders to understand how they've equipped themselves with the skills required to pursue their career journey. We hope that these interviews will inspire you and open your eyes to the diverse range of opportunities available while at law school. Today, I'm pleased to introduce our guest, Amanda Hickey. Amanda is a senior associate at Corrs Chambers Westgarth and has a plethora of experience in different areas of law. Amanda shares her experiences and challenges in the different positions she's been in, the importance of soft skills such as emotional intelligence and how to develop it, as well as her outlook on the future of the legal industry. I hope that you enjoy this interview as much as I enjoyed recording it. Here's Amanda.
Welcome to this Lawcate interview. Thank you for joining us today, Amanda.
No problem.
Firstly, I'd just like to ask if you could introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about what you studied and what you're doing now.
Sure. So I'm a later in life lawyer. I am a senior associate at Corrs Chambers Westgarth, and I'm in the litigation and dispute resolution team there. But my journey into being a lawyer, I was a paralegal for 25 years and then went back and studied law later on. So found out why I'd been doing what I'd been doing for all those years. I just studied a straight law degree. I didn't do a double degree, given I needed to get it done in a hurry.
And in the interest of full disclosure, Amanda is my mentor, thanks to the Monash LSS mentoring program. So I've got a few pearls of wisdom from you, Amanda, but I'm excited to be sharing it with everyone today. But before we get started, we have 3 icebreaker questions that we like to ask our interviewees.
Sure.
So the first one, when you were a child growing up, what did you want to be when you grew up?
It's really sad, but I wanted to be a lawyer from early on. So
Wow.
I had always wanted to be a lawyer. I can't think of when I wanted to do anything else. So I am a self-confessed law nerd.
Do you have an idea of why? Was there someone in your life that influenced you that way or something that happened early on?
Sure. So I had a vague idea that's what I wanted to do when I was younger, but then once I learned about midnight oil, I've always been a really activist kind of listener to music and things. So back in the 80s, Midnight Oil were really influential to me, and Pete Garrett is actually a lawyer. And so I think that really was then a way to push me in that direction.
Right. And you said that you started studying law after 25 years of paralegaling.
Yeah.
If you could describe yourself at law school in 3 words, what
Sure.
would they be?
Okay, so probably dedicated, excited, and exhausted.
That's a good combination.
I didn't go to lectures. I did it through online learning, which at that time was literally they would send you books and that you would read the notes. So there weren't online lectures or anything like that. So it was a really different experience for me in law school. We had some intensives, which were at the beginning of the degree, which was a weekend once a semester where we would catch up with others, but the rest of the time it was self-propelled.
Right, so a little bit similar to what students are going through at the moment with online learning, but a bit different as well compared to what it is now in the format that we're doing it.
Yes, yeah.
So my next question for you, can you tell us a little bit about your first experience working in the law as a paralegal And what was it like to already have that legal experience behind you before you started actually studying your law degree?
Sure. It was good and bad because I guess in some ways, having practiced in a legal sense before learning the how and the why, rather, it kind of then gave me a preconception that I had some idea of what was going on. So I think if it was brand new, you might absorb it in a particular way, but when you practiced in it for a little while, you look at some of the lectures or the lecturing the notes and things, think, is that actually accurate? So it can be a little bit more challenging when you're thinking about how it might be applied. But when I started, I was doing debt collection for a law firm, and I had 400 debt collection files that were just sort of wrote with doing letters of demand and then in the magistrate's court for small debt. So it was really very tedious, but a really, really good grounding because got a good understanding of how to interact with very unhappy people and try and find a way to negotiate a payment plan or something like that, and to report back to clients, because when there's so many matters that you've got going on, you really do have to keep all your records straight and know where you're at any given time. So it was a great learning for making sure that you kept your diary management, your file management up to speed, but also making sure you keep your client informed. So it was a really good learning experience.
And how did you manage that? I can imagine it would have been a very busy time in your life to be working as a paralegal and also studying law. How did you strike the right balance in that time?
I found little opportunities often, because I also have had 2 young children at that time. So
wow, really busy time, extra busy time.
Yeah, so if I had footy training or something, I would be seen in the car parked by the edge of the oval, watching them with one eye and reading a case with the other eye. So multi-skilling, late nights, and that's where having a grounding or an understanding of some of the concepts was really helpful. I don't think I would have got through if it was all brand new.
And were there any particular opportunities while you were at law school or even after studying that became available to you through going to law school?
Sure. Yes, I think that I worked for Queensland government at one point, and you can get really helpful experience there, even if you're not as a lawyer, but the paralegals and junior lawyers there in a lot of these government roles are given quite a bit of responsibility and quite a good opportunity to get involved in legal matters without actually being admitted yet. So that's something that I'd highly recommend to any student at any point in your law degree, is thinking a little bit more broadly and have a look at some of the government and local government, because local government also has a lot of opportunity because they are interested in getting some people in to get experience, but also to give some low-level support to the senior lawyers.
That's really valuable advice, I think, especially during this time. A lot of law students are feeling the pressure that they need that practical legal experience, and
Yes.
It's probably more competitive than ever, given we're in the midst of lockdown in Melbourne, gradually coming out of it. So it's good to be aware of those opportunities. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask, once you did graduate from law school and start the path from paralegal to lawyer, what was the biggest thing that surprised you about the industry?
I think that if all lawyers were honest, a lot of them actually don't know what exactly is the case law, or what exactly is the legal answer to everything that they work within. So I was surprised that we're always learning. I sort of got that sense before practicing as a lawyer that once you'd done the degree and you got a bit of experience, that there'd be no surprises. But there certainly are, and there are plenty of times when senior lawyers come across new aspects of the area that they're working in, or the law changes. A good example of that is, it's a while ago now, but when the Family Law Act came in '76, everybody who had been practicing as a family lawyer up to that date had their knowledge wiped, and everyone had to learn from scratch again. So there are plenty of times like that where the law changes significantly, and even if you're an experienced lawyer, everyone is having to learn it from get-go. It's very grounding, and it brings everybody back to ground zero.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think that's something really exciting about the law and the industry, that it's constantly changing, and I'm sure we're going to see that as well over the next few years. And to have that attitude of constantly learning even beyond law school is really a good thing to equip ourselves with, I think.
But also being comfortable with not knowing everything, and the expectation isn't that you know everything. So trying to put that into some sort of perspective when you're new, actually knowing that your boss doesn't know absolutely everything either, can help with that anxiety around being new in the industry.
So springboarding from that point of constantly learning, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learnt in your career so far?
So I think that one of them is that you don't have to be stuck in one area of law. So my background is really diverse. I've practiced in every area of law other than tax over the years. So I think that there's a misconception that you choose one area and there you are for the rest of your career, but that's really not the case. So that's been excellent. I've really enjoyed that. The other is that there's lots of different areas that working in a top tier or any kind of a law firm isn't the only way to practice law, and there's plenty of really exciting and dynamic opportunities out there that don't just look like your city in a big tall building, big corporate client kind of law.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the different, maybe we can get into a bit deeper into some of the different areas that you've worked in and the challenges that you faced in those areas, and also the things that you really liked, because I think you're such a unique person to be talking to in that you have had this breadth, and I'm sure students would find so much value in your experiences.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I've been a government lawyer, and so that's really exciting. I worked in a few different areas, but particularly for what's equivalent to the Victorian Government Solicitor in Victoria, and they receive instructions from all the different government departments. So one of the really exciting areas that I worked in is the Hague Convention, which is where children that have been abducted and brought to Australia, there's applications made under that convention to return them to a convention country. And there are more children returned to Australia than there are Australia returning to other countries. So super important, not work that you do in any other law firm. And so that was really exciting. But what can be challenging is the conception that government lawyers are just lazy and don't get any interesting work. They're just sort of all brown cardigan people sitting in a corner and not doing anything too much at all. But in fact, it's one of the hardest working areas that I've ever worked in. And the work is so unusual and so groundbreaking that I heartily recommend that to anyone. I've also worked as in-house counsel, which means that you're providing all the legal advice for a corporation. And that's super exciting because you don't just do one area. For me, I was in any given day, I could be doing property, finance, litigation, regulatory law, and and responding to the regulators knocking on the door saying we want to check your aged care home. So no 2 days were ever the same. So that is a challenge because you're trying to keep up with the law in lots of different areas. And I'd address that by making good connections with law firms and being able to pick up the phone to a barrister that you've formed a good relationship with, or a senior partner at a law firm, and say, I was thinking of doing this in response to X or Y. What do you think? And they having those relationships are really pivotal to being able to stay on top when you've got such a breadth of knowledge you've got to get your head around. And I guess also working then in a large law firm, that's been unusual to me because I've worked a lot on my own as general counsel or with only a few people in my team. So working in a 40 people team has been unusual. Working on one matter and nothing else in litigation for a year has been a challenge. It's been an interesting matter and a career-changing matter, but at the same time, it is fatiguing working just on one matter for all that entire year, keeping your interest up, to be honest, and keeping your energy levels up when you're before court for a whole year and it's just working very long hours and very intense matters. I find that a real challenge.
And you also are a mediator and have your own business. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Sure. I got interested in mediation early on. I've done family law, and that's been something that a partner that I worked for, who became a great mentor to me, was very interested in trying to settle matters without them going to court. And so I really got a good sense of what that was like to try and, early as possible, help people out and limit the amount of time that they're in distress, because the financial and emotional impact on people is enormous. So that sort of grew. Then I also became interested in restorative justice, which is my real area of passion. And that's been used to assist people who are historical sexual abuse survivors through the National Redress Scheme, but also through other private arrangements. And that's so supportive of those that are interested in participating in it, to help them find some sense out of what's a very senseless act of crime. Also assists the perpetrators often to get a real sense of what the impact of their actions are. So do commercial mediation, so where partnerships are breaking down, also wills and estates, which I really help rather than just negotiate the figures. My style of practice is what's called trauma informed, and so I've done a lot of extra training to understand how to assist parties not to become further harmed by sitting with the people that they're having a dispute with, but to find a way forward so that, you know, my greatest wish for people who are fighting over a will is they'll still be able to sit down on Christmas Day and have lunch together, because the death of a loved one is so traumatic that to lose other members of the family over material objects, to me, just seems to be quite a sad situation. So if there's anything that I can do as a mediator to help restore their relationship as well as work out their commercial dispute, then there's nothing more satisfying for me as a mediator. But also doing a lot of leasing disputes at the moment. COVID has brought up a whole lot of new areas of distress, financial and otherwise, for people, and landlords and tenants are trying to find a way forward because neither of them, generally speaking, have been very have been spared from COVID and its impacts. So there's unfortunately quite a lot of work out there at the moment.
It's so great great to hear such experiences from such diverse areas that you've worked in, from being intensively in court for a period of time to working on mediations and those sort of alternative or appropriate dispute resolutions. You touched on COVID there, and we've obviously seen recently big changes in across all industries as well as the law industry. What do you see as the challenges and the future of law from where we are today?
Sure. I think it's really exciting because the fact that we're getting more comfortable with doing things remotely opens the world of opportunity to us. And I think partly for law students, I know a few of my friends have started businesses where young law students can join, and as a sole practitioner, as I am in my other business, if I need some research done or some assistance with things from sort of a paralegal-y, law clerky type direction, I contact this organisation and they put it out like a gig economy and say, is there any students out there that have an interest in, I don't know, intellectual property? I need to know if there's any new cases, and I've got 2 hours worth of spend I can put on that. And then some students will put their hands up and get some work that way. So, it's not just being stuck in a summer clerk position or, there's so many other dynamic places, and you don't even need to leave your home to get those opportunities. And I've got another friend who has a construction company dispute resolution practice, and she had an arbitration recently. It was an international matter, and she was able to get assistance from somebody in Switzerland who was very skilled in international building disputes. And so she would work seamlessly with this person on the other side of the world. So I think as a law student coming through, that compared to when I started, the opportunities are just so broad that it's really an exciting time to be part of it. And there's a lot of people that are worried about AI and whether or not that's going to take some jobs, but it'll just change the way we work. And I think one of the things that I would recommend to all of you is to look at your soft skills and to look at your emotional intelligence. You can't turn a computer into providing clients with a lawyer who listens. That's really important. Doesn't tell their client what to do, but actually listens to their client's concerns and then supports them and walks with them to find an answer. You can't make a robot do that. And it doesn't matter if you're advising the head of Telstra or grandma down the road on her new will. Every client needs human interface, and that's where you can be different to your colleagues. And that approachability, the empathy, the understanding of your client, and then the same with an opposition party, if that is the case. All of those skills are not weaknesses. They are very much what your client will benefit from, even if you're having the biggest dispute. Actually listening and understanding what either the other party is saying or your client is saying is, I think, doesn't matter what robots do, you won't be able to replace that. So they're skills that I recommend really making sure that you concentrate on, as well as being a good book lawyer. It's important to be a good human as well. And I think that regulation law, if you want to know what sort of law I think is going to continue to really grow, we've seen all these royal commissions and all of that. And I think that the regulators are going to continue to want to understand what business does. So I think regulation and policy and any law that involves transparency for companies in the commercial world will certainly be something that grows into the future.
It's really exciting to hear you talk with such optimism about the future, especially in relation to technology and the opportunities that are out there for law students, because that's something that we really want to put out there and share with students through Lawcate and through these interviews.
Sure.
You touched on emotional intelligence and the importance of listening and those soft skills as being really important for law students. How have you developed those skills, and how would you suggest students go about developing those key skills?
Sure. I think having that lens on when you're watching anyone, so if you're getting an opportunity to work in a legal centre or any of the opportunities that you might get through any sort of work placement, observing the people around you and reflecting on their interactions, and it doesn't even have to be in a law firm, even just at the cafe down the road. I think being mindful of watching other people's interactions and reflecting on what worked well and what didn't work well, and then observing yourself in a similar circumstance is really helpful. There's a lot online around these things. Bill Eddy is a guy who is really well written, and he talks about managing difficult people, and there's a lot of things you can find on the internet from him. Somebody like that, where the more challenging conversations, he can give you tips on how to manage those. So just spending some time looking at the areas that you think that you struggle with. We all struggle. I could learn, we'll continue to learn till the day I stop practicing. And so reflecting on, okay, I probably lost it a little bit more there than I wanted to, raise my voice a bit more, or just being mindful helps enormously.
If you could go back and give yourself in law school some advice, or if you were to give one pearl of wisdom to anyone in law school at the moment, what would that be? Be
kind to yourself. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be, perfect students, perfect junior lawyers. Don't expect perfection. Do the best that you can, but get supported by people who are in your tribe, so to speak. Find your tribe and work with people that are supportive and raise you up, and remember that you are there because you've learnt a skill, not because you're any smarter or better than anybody else. You've learnt a skill and a profession that is there as a support to society, and to remember that that's the role that we do.
A very inspiring and powerful message, especially during these very challenging times. Finally, if students want to learn more about the work that you do, where can they find you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn, and I am just learning about some of the other social media platforms. I haven't been an Instagram lady, but I am learning that and starting that. I also have a website, which is evokemediation.com.au. But if you're interested in restorative justice or any of the mediation work that I do or is out there, there is plenty out there, and I really highly recommend even just understanding that as a lawyer. It gives you a whole new set of skills. So if you want any direction for any of that, just feel free to drop me an email, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
Thanks, Amanda. We'll make sure that we put those details in our notes and bio. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your career experiences and advice. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's been a privilege to talk to you.
Thanks for tuning into this Lawcate interview, and what a great one it was. It was so inspiring to hear Amanda's outlook on the future of the legal industry, which is such a positive one, and how technology is going to influence the way that we practice law in the future. To stay up to date with future interviews, please be sure to subscribe to the Lawcate YouTube channel and turn on the notification bell. And follow us on our various social media channels. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook to continue to stay up to date with our work. If you yourself or you know someone who has experiences to share, we would love to hear from you. So please reach out via our website or social media channels. Until next time.